Welcome to Tracing Your Family Roots. I'm Chuck Mason, and with me today is Janell Blue, my co-host, and also she is the new president of the Mount Vernon Genealogical Society. We're going to continue with a topic we started in an earlier program on education, and we saved this segment because Janell and I have had experiences with it. We wanted to talk about the opportunities that are available and kind of compare notes on our experiences, and that's institutes. When I first got involved with the Fairfax Society back in 1994, there were two institutes around the country that you could take advantage of. Now, first of all, an institute is a week-long course that is offered in a variety of subject matters, and usually there are some things for everyone. So usually there's something for beginners through advanced methodology types of topics. And it is a week-long intensive course that you go to. The two that were around was the National Institute on Genealogical Research at the National Archives was the official title, and it was known as NIGER. This was a week-long opportunity down at the National Archives. And then there was the Institute of Genealogical and Historical Research that was offered down at Sanford, down in Birmingham, Alabama. I joined the Fairfax Society and was a member for a couple of years, and people encouraged me that I needed to go to Niger. And so actually, they offered a scholarship, which I entered the competition. They actually offered two of them that year. And I was one of the winners of the scholarship, and so I went off to the Institute. You attended GenFed. They have changed the name to GenFed a couple of years ago. They had a new director come in, and she decided to change the name of the Institute. So,
well,
tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, I just attended last year, and it was so interesting. First of all, if you've ever been to NARA, you know that when you walk in the door, you're intimidated right away. And secondly, most people want to do a surname search when they go into the catalog or go into the website, and they're probably not going to find anything. So the whole week of GenFed was about the collections at the National Archives and how you can maximize your success in searching things. And yes, they do have some things that you can put a surname in and find, but mostly you're going to go into collections, and there's where you might happen onto something that will be relevant to the person that you're researching or the time or era that you're researching. And what I learned was that there are so many documents in there that could very well have the name of your ancestor in there, but it's not going to be showing up on a surname search. It was a great week.
And they're comparing the two. The main difference, I think, with when I attended in 96 rather, 2001, and then I did lecture a couple of years. But I think the main thing is it used to be they would bring in other professionals from outside of the area, and I think money became an issue there because when you're flying people in from around the country, it starts to add up, and to keep the price reasonable, you really need to. So now it really is a few very local people and far more of the staff. So you really get the experts at the National Archives who know the records there. And two of the things actually that you get to do is there is a tour and time to work at the DAR library and also the Library of Congress. And you spend the 5 days basically doing some research on your own, listening to the lectures and all. And one of the things that I don't know whether they still do it, did they do the behind the scenes tour out at College Park?
Yes.
Out at Archives
Yes,
too?
they
That's just always been to me so interesting because they took us around and showed us a lot of what they did with preserving and things like that. It's always held in July, and my recommendation to anyone who is interested, go to the website, get your name on their list, and when the registration opens, do it then. We used to do it by paper, and I used to tell people, when that brochure hits your mailbox, you better have your profile ready so that you can fill the application out and mail it the next day, because it does fill up very quickly.
It's very limited. I think, I may be wrong, but I think it's like 40 people.
Yeah,
And
40 to 45 has been because of the rooms. They don't have great big classrooms there. And so the rooms that they have at the archives are limited in space.
And that online registration literally is complete within minutes.
Yes.
But they will give you everything you need to know so that you can be ready when the time comes. And they even have a little countdown counter so that the minute the clock strikes, you can enter your registration and hopefully get in it.
The next one is the Institute on Genealogical and Historical Research, which was, as I say, down in Birmingham, Alabama at Samford University, and I believe it's 2 years ago now. It has moved to Athens, Georgia, which is the University of Georgia Center for Continuing Education. The Institute has, again, advanced topics. They do have a basic or more of a beginner's track, but with these, over time, they change things around, so there is not the same thing every year. And Niger or GenFed does that too. There are some basics, but then there are some topics that change every year. That's why I went back a second time. But you get, for example, the year that I went to Birmingham, to Samford as we call it, they were offering a Scottish research track. They've offered German, they've offered Irish, they've offered English. So that changes. They've offered multiple years or multiple educational opportunities on Virginia research. So there was, I think, a part 1, 2, and 3 that you took 3 years in a row. They have offered Southern research, and that has multiple parts and multiple years to it. There's how to use law library, there's publishing, there's writing, there's methodology and all. And so all of these opportunities are available there. Did you go to Athens?
I did.
You did?
I did.
I thought you said you had.
This was the first year I think they've held it at Athens.
Was it the first year?
And
Okay.
yes, I took Tom Jones's class on writing and publishing for genealogy. And of course, any course that Tom takes or teaches is really, really great. But this was, just to give you an idea of the setting, this is at the Georgia Center, which is one of their continuing education facilities. And there's actually a hotel that's part of the center. So you're really just contained right there where the classes are, and the hotel is there too. And it's a lovely setting. And a place where you can really meet other genealogists and other people that are interested in genealogy.
You know, it's sounds interesting. The Gen Fed, you stay at a hotel in downtown DC. When it was in Birmingham, we stayed, for the most part, most people stayed in the dorms on the campus. And now this new facility, I was reading about it and preparing for this, and sounds like it's really an interesting facility and would be a great opportunity to go and experience it.
Just make sure you register early
Yes,
because it fills up, and then you go to the overflow. If
Yes,
you're-
with all of these, you really need to, because they do fill up. Again, I'm assuming that like in Birmingham, they are limiting the number of people that can get into a class.
Correct.
I think we were 25 in the Scottish research one when I went a few years back. So something else new that is out there, or something new out there, because the first two have existed, is GRIP, or the Genealogical Research Institute of Pittsburgh. And they now have a total of 23 courses at 2 different locations. They do 2 different weeks in Pittsburgh and 1 in Amherst, New York, starting in 2018. And again, they have courses that they offer every year, but they also have courses that change every year. So they're going to have things like Irish research, the advanced methodology. They're going to have military records. They're going to have forensic genealogy, which is something new. They're going to have one on researching women and children, which children can be a problem too, but particularly women ancestors can be a problem when they change their names and things like that. And I know that you said you went to GRIP this year.
I've been to GRIP twice,
Oh.
And I have found that to be a very convenient and friendly atmosphere there. First of all, they offer dorms, so you don't have the cost of a hotel, because the dorm pricing is very reasonable, and it's right there on campus at the La Roche campus. And so, everything is very convenient. It's the first class that I took last year was writing genealogical proof standards, summaries. And every day we would have a case, and then we would work on it at night, come back the next day and compare our summaries and get critique from the class. So that was really good. So that I would highly recommend that. And in terms of affordability, this one is probably the most affordable of the institutes that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, the price does vary from place to place, and of course housing and things like that. I know when I went to Sanford, we stayed on right there on the campus. We could eat in the cafeteria, and I was pleasantly surprised because there was only one night that I got something that I didn't think was all that great, but they had excellent food. The only other problem was Birmingham. The campus was on a hill, and it was fine walking down in the morning from where the dorms were to where the classrooms were, but walking back up that hill, I finally decided after 2 days I was just going to hang around down in the building where the cafeteria was until it opened for dinner, and have dinner and walk up the hill once, because it was quite a hike, and Birmingham is hot.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes, hot in June.
Well, at GRIP, you have the classrooms are in the same area where the dining room is. And then, of course, if you're staying in the dorm, then you have so many opportunities to visit with other people, and especially those meals, you get a chance to sit down and introduce yourself, and you start talking about research or your class. And by the way, this past year, I took a full week on documentation. which is very interesting.
You didn't think that they could come up with that much, I'm sure. One of the other newer institutes is called SLIG. It's the Salt Lake Institute, and of course, out in Salt Lake City. It is in mid-January. That's to me a drawback because, number one, January seems to be the time of the year when I catch something if I'm going to, and number two, it's cold.
You know, it is. I was there in this past January, and I will be there at the end of January in 2018. But last January, you know, it snowed, but those people know how to deal with snow, and so there was no problem. The classes are done at the Hilton Hotel, I think, and then there are hotels all along the way, so that it's easy to get back and forth to not only to where the sessions are, but of course the Family History Library is just down the street too, which everybody is interested in.
There's if you've never been to Salt Lake, there's a whole bunch of hotels there, and of course right across from the temple is the library, which, you know, is just fantastic to do research in. Did they have the little train that run from the hotels when you were?
No, there's not a train, but there was a little shuttle that
Okay.
you could do that would go back and forth to the
Okay,
library.
Yeah.
And by the way, the library, you know, that's really convenient now that we can't get the microfilm anymore. So,
Yes.
and can I just say a little bit about the course that I took?
Sure.
Sure. Because this one was so interesting. We had 5 days. Every day we were given a different course, a different challenge. At like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they would tell us, here is your case, and you have 24 hours, and not literally 24, to solve it, because come back at 4 o'clock the next day and tell us how you solved it, which is, and these were very difficult cases. So it wasn't so important that we actually solved the case, but what was important was the way we approached it, and then when we went back, we learned what the answer was and how that researcher had solved it.
Were these things that you went to the library to do the research?
Well,
or?
Of course, you wouldn't have time to do that. So you could do all of your own online, whatever was available online, you did it yourself. But then if there was a document that you thought, you know, this would really be helpful, you could then call into the central location where they were monitoring everything. And if they had it, they would give it to you.
Which is a great opportunity. I've participated in and have actually taught a couple of those types of classes. And the thing that I have found that's interesting in finding things like this and having a problem is the different approaches that different people will take to solving the problem, and the resources that someone might go to versus someone else. And you know, you learn so much from those kinds of programs.
Well, also just broadening your approach. And for instance, if you see an obituary with a name, that's what you're going to be focusing on. Well, this person had a made-up name. This is the case where it was entirely made up. How do you solve that? So it was a wonderful experience.
And that's how did you solve that?
Well, I actually didn't entirely solve it, but it was eventually solved. And so it was great. This year I'm signed up for maps, so I'm going to learn all about all of the tools that are out there to be able to look at a map, to be able to sort of trace where your ancestry lived, and find those locations.
I at the Jewish conference that I mentioned in a previous show in Philadelphia, I went to a lecture there where the man took a Jewish immigrant family, starting with their arrival in Philadelphia, and found them in the census, found them in city directories, and then looked at the neighborhood and was able to pinpoint, okay, here's the synagogue they went to, here is probably where this person worked, this is probably where they went shopping, went through, and I took this approach because I had great-grandparents came from Scotland, and I did the same kind of research and looked at things, narrowed down where a great-aunt definitely had to work because it was the only rug manufacturer in Philadelphia, narrowed down the one of two hosiery mills that my grandparents probably met at because they both worked and worked that whole problem. You're probably, if they do some of that, you're probably going to have a really good time with that
Yeah, I'm
particular
looking forward
course.
to that a lot.
And then one of the institutes that I didn't know about, but Janell, being from Texas, knew about this one, is the Texas Institute on Genealogical Research, which is held every other year. So it was held in 2017, so it won't be this year, 2018, but will be next year, 2019.
Well, last year or this year was their inaugural.
Oh, okay.
And so they're kind of getting it off the ground.
Why I didn't know about it,
Yes.
probably.
And I think what they did was to use this as kind of a way to then design going forward. So that's why it's not going to be in 2018. I think what's important about this is that every region, probably, not every region, but many regions do have something like this. And it hasn't quite gotten into the national focus yet, but because I'm from Texas. You know, this was particularly important to me, and it really gave me a good background. It's not only about searching the records, it's about understanding the history and the environment that your ancestors were from. And so this first session, which was a week-long session held at the University of Texas at their conference center, the Thompson Conference Center there, and it was really a great way to then launch more research in Texas. But my guess is that if you've got ancestors in other places, look for those kinds of institutes, because you don't know, they might actually exist.
Well, unfortunately, they didn't continue, but there were 3 people that I know that years ago wanted to do a Niger/GenFed regionally. They put them together, and what they were going to do, if you're unfamiliar with the National Archives, in addition to the archives downtown in DC and the College Park facility, there are regional centers. For example, in Philadelphia, there is the one for Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, and West Virginia, and they have records for those states. That these are federal records, but for those states. And what this group was going to do was do a week-long institute at the regional facilities focused on the resources that they have there, because not everything is downtown in DC or out in College Park. There are so many things that are in these regional archives, and I think they actually did 2 of them, and then I don't know what happened, but it was a fantastic idea. I was looking forward to having one in Philadelphia or in New York, because New Jersey and New York, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands records are in the regional one in New York City. And so I would have had 2 of them, but unfortunately they didn't have them. So there are so many things like this that you can go to with these institutes, and you know, just experience-wise, I felt that it was a great opportunity. Living in DC, I just stayed at home and commuted, but you got to meet the classmates, and you got to meet people from different areas of the country. I picked up ideas because when I went to Niger, I was on the board of both Mount Vernon and Fairfax the second time, and so you get to share not just research but ideas of how different societies do things, and things like that. And I'm sure you probably run into
Oh yeah,
a lot of those.
I've made lots of new friends, and we, sort of see each other at various institutes, and it's been, especially my Texas friends, I've met a lot of them through that institute. I would just say one more thing. There's a very current topic now in genealogy, and that's DNA. And these institutes are starting to offer a track on DNA, and that is a good way to really immerse yourself a little bit, because it's a complex subject, but being able to spend a whole week in a classroom on DNA, various topics of DNA, is really valuable, and that's something I'm planning to do this year.
Yeah, I know you get to meet people, and one of the things for me, it meant I got to know people around the country, and I might have a research problem that either I'm trying to solve or trying to solve for a client, and I know someone. I found that I needed a divorce record from Nevada, and so I contacted by email somebody I met at Niger and said, okay, how do I do this?
Right.
And she told me what to do, work through the steps. So hopefully, go ahead.
One last thing, I would just say that there are scholarships for most all of these institutes. So they don't have many, and you've got to really apply quickly, but do look into that if that's an interest to you.
And again, go to our website, and we have the contact information or the website information, and that will tell you whether there's a scholarship and when to register and what all the courses are, because they do change over the years. But hopefully in the two programs that we've done, this one and the one we did a few weeks ago, we've opened people's eyes to the need for education and what's out there available for them.